Let's welcome Tash. Funky, funky.
Oh yeah. What up, everybody? Scramblelock here, back at you for the 4th Locking AMA. I am here and I see a lot of you guys already joined. I'm so happy to be back. Shout out to everybody who's here already. We got Izaskun, Zuse, Momodelic, Lockadelic, Ragavan, whole bunch of people. Again, we got people from all around the world joining in. So welcome. It's so good to see everybody. Vitor Lock in the house from Brazil. Congrats on winning the Locking for Life France online locking battle. He was killing it. Who else we got? C, my man from Ottawa, B-Boy C, what up? Mr. Clean is in the house. Trek Lock in the house. Who else we got? Keegan. It was Keegan's birthday. Keylock, it was his birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Keegan. Yes. All right, so I know Tash is already ready to get started. Before I add her in, just another reminder that this is a locking AMA, which means AMA stands for Ask Me Anything. You guys, your goal, your job today is to ask Tash questions, all right? So you have a comment window that you can ask Tash her questions, but I prefer that you guys actually ask questions using the question mark box, because it's a list that I can go through and I can answer everybody's questions in a organized manner. All right, so make sure you put your questions in there. Also keep in mind that we have an hour limit on every Instagram video, so after an hour we'll probably be kicked out of this particular conversation, and then we'll have to add back in. So just be aware of that, and if we do get kicked out and I don't answer all the questions in the list, keep aware about your questions because they will have to be re-input again, okay? So just a reminder, I think Tash is ready to go. I'm going to add her in, and let's get this AMA started. Hello!
Hi!
What is up?
I'm good. That was like torture watching myself dance in the morning.
No, that was a good clip. You were grooving, letting it out.
A great time in Singapore for sure.
A nice little introduction for you. I was looking actually for some old school MCJ and Cool G videos, but
Oh my God, yeah, you need to like find the VHS.
yeah, I'm not sure which one you were in, so but we'll talk about that in a bit.
Most of them were in those like 80-second, like 3-second flash video. You barely see me, you know. It's just like
yeah. So
yeah.
This was a good one. So I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
How are you?
For me.
Pardon me?
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. You know, I have a mission of wanting to get all of the people I look up to in locking to have these AMA conversations, because I think it's just a good way to kind of converse between us, but also to share that conversation with everybody else. And you know, it's a crazy time. People are stuck at home looking for stuff to do, so I guess it's just a way to provide some sort of inspiration for lockers while we wait until the world opens up again.
Absolutely.
You know.
Do you hear me well?
Yep.
Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Good. Everything is good. Like I had said at the beginning, we have our time limit, so after an hour we'll have to re-add ourselves back in.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm
Okay.
ready.
So I'm gonna just first ask Tash to give a little brief history about where she comes from, how she got started in locking, and while she's doing that, if you guys have questions, make sure you input them in the question box at the bottom, and I will get to asking her those questions. Okay. So Tash, let's let the people know where you come from. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, guys, I'm Tash. I am originally from Montreal, Canada, Montreal, how we call it. I started locking, really locking in '84 when it wasn't really great locking. When I first saw the movie Breaking, that's when I really noticed this dance even more because they actually gave it a name. Before that, I was seeing it on Soul Train. And because my parents were a big fan of Soul Train, my parents are dancers too. Like everybody loves dancing in our community, in our culture too. And so, yeah, I was watching this dance on Soul Train without knowing what it was. So the real start was '84 when I saw Shabba do this breaking one little. He was on the top of the building and swaying, and I was like, oh my God, I want to do this thing that he's doing. I didn't speak English, mind you, in those days. I was maybe 13 years old, 14. Yep, 14. And so that was my dream, and this is how I started.
Right on. And just to kind of add to this, I have
Oh gosh.
right here.
Yes, that's my
So
first group. Yeah.
maybe you can give me a little bit of background about this photo, how old you were, what was this group's name?
So I was 14 years old. The group's name is Comedy's Gang. I'm sitting right there on my boyfriend at the time. He was kind of dressed like Shabba-Doo, so probably why I like
With
him.
the bone earring, you can see
With
there.
the bow and the earring. But that was the style. We saw this movie and we just adopted the style. And so that's Jesse. If you know my son Jesse and my daughter Lydia, that's their father. So we were originally like, I think the first time I saw those guys, they weren't called Comedy's Gang yet. I saw my ex, and that guy on top of him, Lionel, and the one sitting with the glove. No, Jacques is on top of him and Lionel's on the other side. The girl in the middle is Rachel. She was she was one of the first person to do like Haitian dance in Cirque du Soleil. And then the other one on top, Julie, I lost touch. But those two guys and my ex were doing this show. That's how I finally found the Shaka brothers yet. So I saw them on TV, but they were like older than us, performing on the some type of Olympic celebration with the Ballet Jazz of Montreal. So really, those two guys and those three guys, when I saw them, I was going to a roller skating rink in Montreal North, where I grew up, which is the ghetto. We had a
Re-add back in. So let us continue. You were saying this woman in the middle, Rachel, was the one who introduced Haitian dancing to Cirque du Soleil, correct? And
yeah,
this is your Comedy's Gang.
She was one of the first, like, I think I saw her in the first show, and she was doing a lot of the traditional dancing, Haitian dancing, in one of the first show that Cirque had back in those days. But she didn't do locking. I mean, the girls were added to the group, but when I found those guys, I mean, it was at the roller skating rink. I don't know if you heard that part. No? Okay. Yeah. So I'm actually, was doing jazz and ballet since I was really, really young. And, I was part of a dance company in the high school, little dance troupe. And we went to perform as jazz dancer. And then I get to this roller skating rink where back in the day, that's the only place we could, as minors, reunite and roller skate and dance and have a DJ and really have fun. And so the roller skating rink in Montreal North which was in the ghetto, you know, was our escape from, you know, the gangs and the this and the that. So when we were in high school, you know, that place, that roller skating rink and the Friday night dance were the two things that we could do. So I went to perform there and I see these guys doing like a performance, you know, and all of a sudden I'm sitting in the audience and I have to go after them. But I'm sitting, like standing in the audience, looking at them on the stage and going, oh my God, they're doing this dance that I saw in the movie Breaking. And I couldn't believe it because Montreal North, if you know Montreal, it's not even downtown. It's like on the edge, just like in the middle of nowhere. So to find that dance there, so obviously locking reached that far. So that was my in. But I didn't meet them that day. I met them in the high school. Henri Bourassa High School was, yes. Oh, wow, look at that. Henri Bourassa High School was the big high school where, yes, all of the gangs were and all of the riots were and all of the racism and a lot of stuff was going into that high school, but it was the hub of the culture also for dancing and music videos and a lot of things. Like everybody was imitating everything and going to the Friday night dance. So they were all going to my high school, except for the older one. He was already out of high school. So Luke, which is Jesse's father and Lydia's father, he started liking me at the high school. So then I was like, it's that guy that was on stage, but there's no connection yet until he asked me out, which was much later. So let me cut the story short. And then that's when he started teaching me what they knew. So I was like, kind of like in the movie, I was the jazz dancer, you know. So yes, what I was saying is just Montreal was everything in those days in 80s had a theme of a dance show. There was a dance show, there was Dance Fever, there was On Danse Son Rôle, there was so many shows on TV for us that we were like really swimming in the dance on every level. Plus, Montreal is really renowned for their party scene. So we had a lot of clubs. And so my parents, you know, I used to watch them and they would go to the club all the time. And it was driving me crazy that I couldn't dress up and go to the clubs with them. So,
Okay, let us continue. So you were we're talking about the 1980s, getting into locking.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So I'm in the 1980s. As I said, I don't know which part you guys heard, but Montreal North, where I was from, was very, very. It was like the ghetto. The only thing we could really do is watch music videos and dance, and of course play sports and do all of those things. So locking was where a lot of us found something. Well, for me, it was a few of us actually, with my ex and his friends, where I could finally learn this dance that I kept seeing on TV and especially in breaking. So as they're teaching me, of course they have no techniques, they have no history, they're just copying and paste whatever they're seeing in the movie. Of course, there's New York not far, so a lot of the gang members in those times were training in New York, or training or dancing in New York, not even training, because it wasn't even about training in those days. We were just doing it. So they would bring it back, and then the little brothers and the little sisters, and, you know, would catch on, carry on, copy, paste, and this is how we started dancing it. And it was very sloppy, you know, like when people say slop locking, that's pretty much us in the beginning. But with Comedy's gang, I was 14 and we started performing in clubs, because in Montreal, if you were with your parents, you could go inside the clubs.
Oh yeah?
Your parents let you. Yeah.
Interesting.
So my mom was there when I was performing a few shows around, you know, like Montreal and Quebec, with Comedy's gang, because the thing is that the guys were older and I was the youngest. The girls were the youngest, so we would just like tour these little towns, and especially like some of the club owners, some of the people that, you know, wanted a special act and they had connections because, you know, when you think about Montreal, you think about clubs, mafia, you know, they own the clubs that they ask their friends or their peeps, you know, like we need a special act for this day, for this, because everything in those days in Montreal had live acts. If you know Ethel Bruno, that's the way she was performing in Montreal originally, but a lot of us were performing, so I wasn't even allowed to be in those clubs to perform, but I started actually performing at 14 in the clubs. So that's one of the big reasons that the Montreal community is very connected with the live community, the music community.
Interesting. Ethel Bruno, for those who don't know, is one of the early tap dancers that came to Montreal, and she kind of helped build the scene here for tap in Montreal. And Travis Knights is one of her prime students, so very interesting. Yes, Montreal does have a huge history when it comes to clubs and parties, and I think this is what has been, I think, fundamental for a lot of dancers who come from Montreal, is having that background in the club scene and the party scene. And you know, when we see you dance, obviously you represent that as well too, you know. So this is something I think that's really important. Maybe we can start talking about that eventually, about the importance of clubs. I know we talked a bit about it with some other people, but maybe you can share with me. Let's cross our fingers and hope this lasts.
Montreal was just, you know, this is how the culture started in the clubs in Montreal. I mean, it went from my parents to me, from me to my generation. I used to try to bring my friends from high school, from college, to Jello Bar, and they were like, we don't want to go to Jello Bar. And I'd be like, no, man, we got to go to Jello Bar. That's where the live scene is. That's where the singers are. This is where the live band will actually invite you on stage and you can get down. And it was very difficult to convince, you know, 16 years old, 17-year-old that, you know, Jello Bar was the stuff that I could get them in because I knew the bouncers, you know. So it was those little things that grew, you know, us closer together. But we had, you know, other clubs that were 18 and over where we had cyphers, like Swan. I remember Swan had a lot of cyphers because there we could actually break or dance or use the space, whereas other clubs you'd get kicked out if you used too much space.
Right.
The bouncers would come and kick you out because it was, you know, people were drinking, they had their drinks in their hands, you know, so they didn't want to be you know, spilling their drinks everywhere on the floor and then nobody can dance. So it was really interesting, but we knew which clubs to go to where we could really express ourselves. And also at the same time, you know, now we're talking about the 90s. There's New Jack Swing coming, the music. There's also, you know, business that had a lot of house. So everything was you know, a cluster of styles that we didn't pick. Like, even though I love locking, we danced all the styles all the time, everywhere, all the clubs. So, you know, if you go to the Salvio, it's like mainstream, but that's the Italian club, but they had this. If you go to, you know, Club Crystal or Salsa Tech, you go dance salsa, but they have half-hour sets of funk or, you know, Teddy Riley, anything that was New Jack Swing. So you knew that you go there on a Monday and you catch that real, you know, New Jack Swing vibe, because they had one DJ come in during the Salsa Tech night doing 3 sets a night of New Jack Swing. So every club had a purpose. So we were going out all the time. Don't ask me, I had kids. I was like sleepless in Montreal all the time, trying to get babysitters, because that was my escape from my reality as a mother too. But every club had something. And so that's why I say to people, like, yeah, in Montreal, why we're good dancers is because we danced in all the clubs with everyone. And if business is happening, we're going to club business and we're house dancing. Even though we didn't, like, literally pick up the style and went deep in it, we still doing it in the clubs, right? So the techniques of each dance styles really started when, you know, you have a focus and you're like, okay, this is what I like to do. This is what my favorite style to do. Some people picked, you know.
Mm. I remember just that feeling of club hopping and how everybody in Montreal was doing that. Even when I first came to visit the city, you know, I remember Boom Beast and Miko and a whole bunch of dancers. They just took me to different clubs the first time I was here, and I met everybody that way. And it was like, that was my introduction to the scene, you know, and it was like something I wasn't used to coming from Hamilton.
Mm.
So the way of life of dancers in Montreal was definitely a special thing for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's also why there's a lot of great dancers in Montreal. It's not so much that, you know, we are perfect in the style that we do, but it's the way we hear music. It's just part of us. And growing up in the scene with the live singers, we learned a lot about music.
Mm.
We learned to listen to the way they played the music so that we can, and you know, connect with the singers. Because let's not forget that a lot of the singers were playing the top. Like, the only way you could go and hear New Jack Swing live is if you went to Club Checkers, which I know some of you don't relate to that, but those who were from Montreal, and Club Checkers was this huge club where, you know, we had, you know, Alan Prater, Danny Blanco, who was my second boyfriend, you know, but it was, you know, the way we learned to adapt and listen to music and dance with music. And they wouldn't play the New Jack Swing track the same way that you hear it on the radio. They would play it their way. So you couldn't just record the song and do the moves. You just have to connect with the band.
Mm.
And so if they had, you know, they would extend the bridge of the song, you had to like figure it out and wait and just. So there was this, and that Club Checkers was an after-hour club. So we went to the clubs until 3 a.m. Then we went to eat at Burger King on St. Catherine. And then we went to Club Checkers, which was 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. And that was a live band and a DJ, Mark Blue. It was really great. And so Alan Prater and Portfolio, all those guys, you know, they were like always playing. Then after Club Checkers, we went to eat at a restaurant, Picasso's on Saint Jacques, because that was a breakfast. If you want to have breakfast, you go to Picasso's in the morning at 7 a.m. You get there. And then later on in the 90s and the 2000s, when the raves started coming, we started going to the after-hour club, after-hour club, which was like the raves. And it was already started at 4 a.m., 3 a.m., but they finished at 12 p.m., you know, and
Crazy.
so you go out and it's bright outside. So that was the life of,
so you mentioned Alan Prater, and I'll just give people a bit of an explanation of him. Alan Prater is a singer-songwriter here in Montreal. He has a band called The Brooks. He originally played, at some point, he was in the band with Cameo. He was a horn player in Cameo. He was, I believe he went on tour with the Jacksons. He was touring with Michael Jackson. And yeah, he's been quite active in the Montreal scene over the years. He's done Montreal Jazz Fest and stuff. I know he's dealing with some health issues at the moment. So, you know, we're definitely have Alan in our thoughts during this time. But yeah, man, his music is incredible.
His music is amazing. And this is one of the men next to Danny Blanco that really, they took us under their wings as dancers. And every time they had shows, whatever, it was at New Orleans, which was originally the Club Soda, the first Club Soda. And, you know, New Orleans, we had these live shows. We had like a James Brown imitator, you know, and I was dancing for him for a long, long time. So that's how I busted my chin doing a dive once, and I never did that dive. I never messed up that dive ever after it went. I was bleeding on stage, right? But
battle scars.
I mastered it. But that's what it is. Like, these clubs were always live, and they had us dancers performing with them. And so that moved into like the hip hop scene and the rap scene, and we were touring with rappers, and It was a lot of things as dancers, backup dancers. But in those days, you got to think that the dancers we're seeing Hammer perform, and he has 20 dancers. So with MCJ and Cool G, when we're dancing, even though on a locker, we're doing, party dancing. It's New Jack Swing type of song, and we're 10 dancers on tour with this with MCJ and Cool G. 10 on tour all over Canada. So we were paid by Capitol Records. So you got to think that in those times, like we're really, really closely connecting to the American culture, but still, like, Maestro Fresh West was considered whack from the American side. But Maestro Fresh West was the bomb in Canada, right? Because he's Canadian, right? So it was a lot of history like that kept us connected to this heavily in the culture as Montreal. And even like I had a conversation with Mr. Wiggles on the way back from Toronto the last time, and he said the first time he came to Montreal was in '84, I think, when they were touring, and he said, because we were talking about the gang culture and all of this in the Bronx, also in Montreal, and I was saying, no, it was pretty heavy in Montreal North, and he goes, yeah, I believe you. He goes, actually, I was there. I saw it. I saw how intense Montreal is, and it's only lately that I realized why it was so intense. It's not because we had gangs. We had rivalry gangs that were part of dance movement, but those rivalry gangs in the Black culture, we had the rivalry mafia, in the Italian culture, and we had the Hells Angels, and we had the corrupted cops. So that organized crimes was where we were living. So we were dancers. So we're all dancing together, but Eddie has associations to different, my ex was like with this gang, and then his friend was with this gang, but then, when the gangs were rivals, it was all connected to the crime culture, the drug culture, the clubs were part of it. If you had a good club in Canada, it would end very quickly if a good hip hop club in Montreal, because the gangs, it was a shooting, the clubs would shut down, but they have to have a new club. So this is why now it's very hard to find a good hip hop club.
Right. For those that don't know, even some certain clubs in Montreal on a particular street, you had to pay protection money to make sure that your business would be safe, let's say. And so a lot of these clubs had to provide payments. Yeah, the link with the street world and the dance world, is very unique to every city, but for sure it's something that in Montreal you have this connection as well. And this is kind of connecting to the importance of understanding culture outside of just the dance, right? And understanding where and why these dances come about, right? And this is a pretty common point of discussion, let's say within locking, about the importance of understanding culture and being aware of culture. So maybe this is a good springboard to talk about those type of questions.
Yeah. Well, do you have a question about culture?
Well, maybe for you to kind of explain, it's important for dancers to understand, let's say, maybe the culture of locking and the culture of their own scene, and where, the dances come from, and why it's important to have an understanding of this.
Well, everything has a background, right? If you don't understand the background and the environment, you don't understand the dance, you don't understand why you're doing the dance, and what everything that you do within the dance, the movement, stems from. Especially in locking, it's so important. And because locking is such a paradox, starting from a man who couldn't dance, but what he was trying to do is be part of his environment and do these dances that, his friends were doing, So we're talking about him trying to do the robot shuffle and then can't do it, but at the same time, is inspired by what he sees, and then he does it his own way. Within that, you have a whole bunch of course, context, where there are, like, you give yourself 5, that's normal. You point at people, that's normal, When you dance, when we were in a club, we didn't dissociate the dance from life. We didn't dissociate what we were doing as, okay, I'm locking or I'm popping or I'm breaking from what was happening in the club. So if you're dancing and you're in the cultural environment or in the petri dish of the club, you're still going to the bar, you're still, you know, having your drink in your hand, you're still pointing at your friend from across, you know, you're doing all these things that's part of just the social aspect of dancing. And the social aspect of dancing is what is super important, is that yes, you had the people that would just stand with their backs on the wall, like the song, you know, get your back up off the wall, dance, come on. We had these people that would just like, you know, stand there. But the dancers, the moment we stepped in, even the singers, the bands, they were like, it's about to get started. Because we walked in and we put the fire in the place. And that's the thing. We recognize each other. They're recognizing us. So this is a social aspect of dancing, the eye contact that sometimes as dancers nowadays, you're not understanding that this is important. It's not just to dance unidimensional in front of your mirror. And I understand that there's a lot of online battles and, you know, now we're in a special situation, but the club built us. So when you look at people dancing, a lot of our generation, the way we dance is like this. You know? And I always
three-dimensional.
I'm like, the camera was there, but Tash, your back is to the camera. I'm dancing for everyone. I'm dancing in the space, just like I was dancing in the club, right? So that was our context. And so, of course, with time, the context changes. The studio comes. People are dancing very unidimensional with the mirror, frontal, no 360 using the space. But where you're in a club, if you find a mirror, you're lucky. And, you know, there was these dancers facing the mirror in the club. There was always this one dancer facing the mirror. But everybody else is, you know, entangled in this, you know, amazing cluster of dance. And we would really pay attention to the other dancers, like, okay, what you're doing. Oh, okay, let me respond to that. Which also is a bit why you see the B-boys. It was the same thing, the B-boys, that, you know, you do, I do, you do, I do. In the New Jack Swing era, it was the same. And locking before me, not because I wasn't in the clubs when locking was alive. I wasn't even in America, you know, but I could only imagine if it was the same. And if I was in LA with Don and all those people, that back and forth, how Scooby says, it was sharing. I didn't teach the dance. I was sharing the dance in my house. I was sharing the dance. I was sharing what I learned. Where is that thing?
All right. This is like attempt number 5. Thank you guys for being patient with Instagram messing up. Okay. We are now in the part of the conversation where Tash is explaining how she met Don Campbell in 2004. This was at the B-Boys Summit. I was there. It was the first time we met. And it was an important event, I think, at that time, because it was part of the resurgence of locking. Locking was becoming more popular again. People were starting to look into understanding the history and do more research. So we were part of that generation that was there at that time, trying to seek out the OGs. So continue. You first met Don and
yes, I was on my way to his class in the morning because they had workshops. And I remember I couldn't find that dang Lincoln Street because it's cut off in so many areas. And then it was next to MacArthur Park, but I couldn't find the entrance. So I remember Brian Green, I was supposed to take his class too, and I couldn't reach it. So I had to find a way to call, you know, all the way to New York. And I called Shock. I'm like, Shock, I can't find the address. I need to get there. And Shock literally goes, here's Don's number. And then I'm like having this moment of panic attack, like with my phone. Oh my God, I have Don's number in my phone. You know, every dancer goes through that. When you get a pioneer's number for the first time and you're literally freaking out.
This is before social media, before Google Maps, before anything like that. This is how we had to get in touch with people.
You had no way of reaching these pioneers. So I have Don's number, so I'm calling it, but he's not answering it. And so I'm calling Specs. I'm calling a Decila. Decila's trying to explain where it is, but the Decila's not there anymore. So I'm freaking out. I need to get to Don's class. So eventually I reach Don. And already I'm shaking like, oh my God, Don is on the phone with me. And Don is like the Don you remember. You know, bless you, Don. He's like, what up, baby girl? Yeah, Shock told me. And yeah, you got to take the 101. And he was like literally talking this way on the phone. And yeah, once you get on the 101, you exit. Like he's telling me the whole thing. And like he's giving me the step to get to his class. And I make it. And the funny thing is, I remember being in a car. And I was in a car with Steve Bolton because he was driving me. And so it was really, and Sonia. So it was really interesting to get to that, you know, little studio. So when I get there, of course, Brian Green's mad at me because I missed his class. So I get the 3rd degree. Then I get into the class. I think you were there. You were there for sure. A lot of people were there. That's where I met Sundance in Don's class. And we were giving that big studio that they kicked us out of. So already when I get there, he's happy that I'm there. I'm like, Don, I'm the girl that called you. He's like, yeah, baby girl. That's how he used to call me. Like, you know, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you made it. But then it's time to start the class. So he started the class in the big studio. There's too many dancers from another style. They switch us studios. They give us a story of lockers. Give us the small room with no sound system, with nothing, no music. So we have to do soul clap.
I remember that.
You remember?
Oh, God.
You remember? And we have to do soul clap to start the class. And so by the time they bring a boombox, a little boombox that sounds so bad, and Don is trying to teach us this dance, and we're just like, okay, whatever. So me and Sundance, we were all the way in the back. And that's how I met Sundance. He came to me and was like, nice dance. And give me a high five. You know, and see, this is the culture. Like, and then we kept going. And so remember, the class was really interesting because all of us were kind of like, okay, he's teaching us locking. He's just telling us wrist roll. He's not even saying wrist roll. He's like, roll. He's like, then you're going to point, and you lock. You look at the mirror, go to the mirror, go back, go down the Soul Train line. And we were like, okay, but how do you do these other moves that we learned, you know? So we couldn't really understand Don yet because he was the dance. And nobody could understand, like we would all have these questions, but we were in the class kind of like, okay, we're going to do what he says, but we're thinking this is so basic. I know all of us are thinking that, right?
I remember, like, Don did 2 classes that weekend, and I know Gemini and Jeremy were in that one of them too. I don't know if it was the same one as you, but yeah, I totally remember this, and the same thing. It was like, we didn't really understand the importance of what Don was showing at the time, because this was like at the beginning of even any of the first locking workshops that were ever really offered publicly at that time. B-Boy Summit was the first to offer these kind of opportunities for people.
Yeah.
So there was no structure on how to do it. There was no like, you know, this is the format that you must follow. It was just like, go, share, and begin. And that was it. We had to adapt.
Absolutely. And that's what it was. It's like all of us are like in these workshops, and some of these workshops are happening at the same time. So I remember Fluky Luke was teaching at the same time as Don. So you had to go, do I take this one or I take this one? Do I take and I remember at the end of Don's workshop, he did the Don thing where, you know, he started talking. There's another workshop starting, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna miss the other workshop, but I gotta sit here because Don is telling the story, and it's my first time hearing it from his mouth. So I'm sitting there on the floor, and Don is going for hours. I missed all the workshops after that, but there were more popping workshops. I think it was, you know, Pup and Pete and all those guys teaching after that. So I was like, no, I want to listen to Don. I want to learn this thing. I want to understand. So he's telling the story that most of you have heard about, you know, the clothes and why he did what he did and what inspired him. It was a lot of things that he said in that 1 hour after the workshop. So from that moment on, You know, I'm just glued to Don's hip. No matter where he is, I'm with him somewhere. I'm watching him. And all of us were kind of doing that. But at the same time, we're meeting each other for the first time. So I meet Scramble. I meet Gemini in the battles and the sweaty funk room. That room, again, they put the B-boys had this big space because it's B-Boy Summit. We were like shoved into the funk room with a sweaty funk ceiling that was dripping sweat on us. It was disgusting. But, you know, everybody is in that room and we're all ciphering together. Flowmaster is there, E.B. Skeet is there, Pop and Pete, Tony Basil, Don, Sugar Pop, P-Lock, Gemini, everybody. I don't know, Lockadelic, I think she was there
yeah,
too.
You won't be able to see this right now, but I'm gonna just put this up on the video for people to see. But this is a clip I have from the B-Boy Summit in that room, in that sweaty room.
Oh, show that sweaty room.
Yes, and you can see that at some point the circles, people were dancing everywhere. There were circles on the outside, there were circles on the inside, right? It was like a room of just lockers and everybody ciphering, getting down. Right?
Great.
There's a bunch of clips I have of this, but I'm just giving a little teaser on that. For those who were there, they know what was up. But yeah, that was a special time.
I'm plugging my phone. I'll be back.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, let me share a little bit more of that funk cipher, because I do have a clip of Tash when she was here in that room, if I can find it.
What? You do?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you and your archives. When my locking was really shitty. But
Here we go, guys. This is Tash, the B-Boy Summit 2004.
What? I don't even have that footage. You guy.
Actually, that's Jeremy. Y'all know Jeremy from France. And here comes Tash. We see Aline, Lockadelic, Rose, all in the background. And Tash jumps out. She's wearing an army hat.
Hey, remember that conversation with Richie? I was wearing army hats and not locking stripes with a lot of people, and everybody was mad at me because I wasn't always wearing the stripes.
Yep. P-Lock was in the circle, locking Fossil. There's tons of people at that event.
We were all there, and the locking battle never happened.
Yeah.
And that was the big disappointment of this event, is that they had so many poppers. I think they had over 70 poppers. 70 poppers back in those days was a big deal. So they took all the time the day before in the funk room, and then by the time we went to the finals in MacArthur Park, which started way too late, we got kicked out of the park at 6 because we were making too much noise. Same story of B-Boy Summit as 1999, where we got kicked out of Venice Beach, and that was actually a huge riot, and I was there. So now we're getting kicked out of the park by the cops. So that's how I actually finally sat down with Don. Everybody left, and me and Don are sitting together in an empty park because I'm waiting for my ride, and he's waiting for his ride. So it's just perfect because, you know, Steve just dropped me in the middle of the jungle in MacArthur Park. And I was just waiting there, and Don, that's when me and Don got really, really close, and we started talking. He gave me his card. His wife was picking him up. And so from that moment on, you know, I was just like, okay, Don, like I'm glued to him. And of course, my first mentor in locking was E.B. Skeet. Because in 1999, when I went the first time, it was like I went to see Pop and Speed. I'm like, teach me locking, teach me like foundation of, because, you know, we didn't have anything to hook ourselves to. Like, we didn't have technique or we didn't know what it was. We knew it was like all of these things, but we didn't have any teachers. Like Mark said, you know, B-Boy Summit 2004 wasn't the first format where they're having workshops. So before that, you just have to ask and cipher with these people. Like in 1999, I was ciphering with E.B. Skeet and Pop and Pete, and Taco was in these ciphers, like the popping ciphers. But I remember asking Pete, and he says, no, I'm not going to teach you locking. Go see go see Skeet, E.B. Skeet, Electric Boogaloo Skeet, rest in peace. And I remember that's where I went to see him at the table. And then he's like, yeah, you're a locker? You're from Canada? Already being from Canada was a big, weird thing. A girl from Canada in LA. So he said, here, I'm selling these DVDs. And, you know, the DVD that you see where he's teaching locking and you see Greg in, I bought this DVD. So that was my first introduction to like, okay, some of the things that we need to do in locking. So I learned more of the footwork. You know, I learned a lot of, you know, different concepts, you know, like he was doing it all in there, but based on what he learned from Greg.
Right.
So that, yeah.
To kind of like transition from what you said earlier about how when we first took Don's class, we didn't really understand what he was showing. Yeah. We needed another way to kind of understand that. And I think Greg was that bridge that provided that link to what Don was doing 100% in his life, and for everybody else to kind of understand what locking was through Greg, for sure. Yeah. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about how you met Greg.
Yeah. There's a lot of politics or a little bit of things happen, but when I met Greg, it's a big story because I met Greg after Don, of course, and I met Greg when I was at HHI. I was a head judge at HHI, and at that time, I can give a little bit of background because this is where I met Greg the first time. Is there was a class that happened in Las Vegas at the same time I was judging HHI 2005. In LA, Manhattan Beach, I think. And what happened is they organized a class for Greg to help him with money. So it was Drigo from Las Vegas found the studio, and he organized it with a whole bunch of people from Vegas. Like Sundance was there, Pop was there, you went, Scramble was there.
I was the one in 2005. Is that what you're referring to?
2005. Yeah.
Okay.
You were that one. That's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I live in Vegas, but I'm not in Vegas. I'm in LA for HHI. And there was supposed to be this locking summit happening that OG Skeet was trying to organize.
Right.
And so we had all signed up to go to that locking summit. That fell through. So they kept going. Well, you know, Drigo said, let's just do a class for Greg in Vegas.
Exactly.
I stayed in HHI because we're honoring Don that year, 2005, as a Living Legend Award. And the whole background of HHI is that when I first went to HHI in 2004 as a Canadian judge, there was no Don, there was no Boogaloo Sam, there was nobody. So I invited, like I gave Howard the number to reach out to Don, to Boogaloo Sam, to Pete, to all those people to make the HHI competition a little bit more authentic.
Right.
As I'm a consultant for this competition, I get an email. We get a whole bunch of emails from a whole bunch of people. And I got one from OG Skeet, and he wanted to do, when the whole thing fell apart with the Locking Summit, he wanted to bring the Locking Summit at HHI. And I'm like, oh, you can't do that already. As a consultant, I said to Howard, you can't do that. Because if we do that, at that time, Don and Greg are like enemies, right? And I say, we're honoring Don, and it's a Living Legend Award. We can't have a workshop, you know, taught by Greg in the same venue, you know, like it. So I said, no.
Too much tension at that time.
Yeah, too much. So I said, no, it's not going to happen, you know. So Howard, you know, would really listen to me. So he said, no, we're not doing it. So what happened is, you know, after they did the class in Vegas, somehow OG Skeet went to the class. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that. They came back, and now Oscar is there. Supreme is there with Greg. And they all bring Greg to HHI anyways. So we're all sitting there, and this is how I met Greg. That's a sad story, but it's the truth. It's like we're all sitting in the lobby. Don is sitting there about, you know, like this is HHI, you know, all kinds of dancers are in the lobby. Dennis is there. I'm there. Spicy is there because she's with me. She came to support that year. Mm-hmm. And Supreme walks in with OG Skeet and Greg. And at that time, there's like a lot of other things happening. I'm not gonna get into that. So they walk in, and all of a sudden, you could see Don flip out, just like you could see the tension building. And then now Dennis, the son of Don, starts freaking out. Now Greg is like all smiling, he's trying to like keep the peace. He's like, no, I came to support Don. Don is, literally really, really, like he's fuming, but he's holding it in. So, but there's a huge fight that starts.
Right.
And huge fight. And so I asked, I'm not going to get into details. I asked Spicy to take care of Don. I physically grabbed Dennis and took him outside and said, go back to your room. Like, you can't do that here. I saw OG Skeet move from wherever he was to Don, left Greg alone. Greg went outside, and Greg was really sad. So when I was like sent Dennis back to his room, I was outside and I saw Greg, and this is how we first meet. And he's like, Tash, I'm supporting Don. I love Don. He's like, it's because of him that I'm doing all this. He's tearing up. He's super sad, but I don't really know him, so I don't know how to gauge him yet. Like, is he truthful? Is he not? But it seemed very heartfelt. So that's how I met Greg, And so at that time, he stayed. I gave him tickets to the show. Me, Dennis, and Max Oliveira from Momentum Crew in Portugal. He was also there, so we did a tribute for Don when he got the Living Legend Award. And and Greg was sitting in the audience with, watching us, and, it was a really weird moment where nobody's getting along, but we're all in there to get together. So it wasn't until 2006 when Sundance started organizing the camp for Greg, to give Greg money. It was always to help Greg, survive, because Greg was traveling, at that time a little bit more in Japan and in China. He's going all these places. So, Sundance's first motive was to learn from Greg as much as we can. So he has archives like Scramble. Yeah. But at the same time, it was to support Greg. So Sundance organized all of this stuff, and then he asked me to come on board to start helping him organize the classes at Elite Locking Camp, which was the original name for Las Vegas Locking Camp. Mm-hmm. And that's what Greg called it, Elite Locking Camp. That was his camp. He was supposed to start it everywhere in the world, but really the only place that it happened really was in Vegas. Why? Because Sundance was just like, no, this is like the passion for locking kept him organizing it. So Greg did not organize the details, like the hotels, the studio. Like Sundance did all of that.
Right. I
came in as a helper to teach and drill the students, and also to bring the people that I knew from Cirque du Soleil, because at that point I worked for Cirque du Soleil in Vegas, to bring them to pay for classes so we can have funds for Greg. So I'm inviting my dancers, and they're not lockers, but they're coming in just to fill the need, that pay Greg for his time. And we had maybe 15 students in 2006. So why we say their first camp, Elite Locking Camp, was that year is because the year before it was different, the 2005. And we used to really have a lot of debate with people about this, and it was just like, no. When we started it for real was 2006. Before that, it was a class, yes, but it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't in the format and in the structure when we made our mind and go, we're going to do this every year. And so that's how Greg came in, and that's how we learned most of what we knew, the technique and a lot of the things. It was from Greg, with knowing that we had no idea that Don had it all in him already, the basic. We couldn't see the basics because we wanted to wanted to run before we walked, right?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I mean, I know before Greg passed that Don and Greg were able to patch some things up, I believe. So,
yeah.
I'm sure you were happy to hear this too, but I know it's like when that happened, it was a good moment when the lockers all were able to reunite on the night that Greg passed. So, you know, despite all that, they did manage to patch things up. You know, same with Dawn and Scooby before things happened. You can maybe talk about how you got into meeting Scooby, but the one thing I just want, I guess, to give you props for is that you're a bridge. You know, like, I know you've said it before, but you're a bridge between all these generations of lockers, not only the newer generation, but also kind of bringing unity within the OGs as much as you could, to bring them together, to bring them back, to give them proper credit that they deserve, that, you know, these guys are the ones that created the dance, and just the camp itself was an outlet for that. And I think in the last couple of years when you were doing it, it was just amazing that you were able to get so many of these originals out to hear their stories. And the fact is that a lot of people, you know, they couldn't travel, so it was like you brought them there, and that was the chance. Like, if you want to meet the OGs, you got to go to the camp, because a lot of them can't travel, but they could go to Vegas. So it was really special that you were able to do something like this with the camp.
Thank you. Yeah, that was, you know, my goal is to bridge all of it in the end, even though it was very difficult. Because they didn't get along, but yes, in the end they did try to get along. A lot of the stuff that was going on was old memories from the past, old injuries, old feuds, and they were dragging it into the present. And my goal was like, no, we need you guys to teach us, the new generation. And I'm still a student up to today, so HHI was one place where they could network, and then, you know, I'd bring them to HHI. Actually, that's when Tony, Basil, and Don finally made up, was at a HHI, you know, on the stage. Like, I mean, there's a lot of stories, and even, you know, because it was the gathering, we needed to get these people to talk. And for me to bring Don to the Las Vegas locking camp, that was a hard one, because it was Greg's camp. And so Don had this is Greg's camp. He never felt invited, but then me always working and go, no, I love Don, you have to come. And the first time he said no to me. The first time he didn't come. The first time I invited him in 2011 when Scooby came back. So, yeah. So, and I was really, really hurt, and I got mad at Don. Because let's not forget that we're all humans, right? And so me as Tash, I would get mad at the pioneers all the time. I would literally stop calling them, and I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not talking to you anymore. Like, I would be like a mother, like I was just like, or a little brat kid. I was like, I'm mad at you. And I mean, and Lockadelic was there. She's there with me a lot of during that time where I was really mad at the pioneers. Oh my God, because they were making my job. I was trying to bring them into, you know, this with the new generation, be that bridge, but they would make it so difficult. And they were like, oh, well, if he's there, I'm not going. And if that, like, I would go, I don't want to do this anymore, you know. And Scooby coming back, you know, like, sadly, when Greg passed, it was like a really sad day with Las Vegas locking camp, because at that point, he's the driver of elite locking camp, actually. And so that's 2010. He passes, as everybody knows, you should do your research, but during that gathering for when they got honored in LA for choreographers ball, it was like, what did they call it? Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think it was the choreographers ball, but it was in 2010. The lockers were given a recognition award.
Recognition is the first time that they reunited together under one. I couldn't go because I was working for
Carnival.
So
it was Carnival.
Yeah. It was in February, and that's the day, that night that Greg passed.
Right.
And so, if you want to ever hear more about it, of course, Tony was there. You have to ask Tony. Go to the source. Flowmaster was there. He was with Greg in the last moment before he was taken by the ambulance. So that was for us like, okay, we lost Greg, so we didn't do the camp in 2010. Because and through that, it's the way that Scooby got back. Why? Because, you know, nobody knew Scooby. Like, Greg used to teach us all this stuff that Scooby taught, taught him or like shared with him, you know, in the lead locking camp. So he's teaching the stop and goes, the scubas, the this, the that. And he's like, and he was always talking about Don, but he was also always talking about Scooby. But everybody thought Scooby was dead. And so some of the Singaporeans know the story now, you know, because you talked to Scooby last week. But a lot of us didn't know the story at that time. I know it now. And so if you ever want to know, you have to talk to Scooby. But at that moment, there's only maybe a few that knew that Scooby might still be alive within his family and very, very close friends, but nobody else knew. So we think Scooby is dead. So when Greg passed, you know, Scooby told me, you know, the story and his wife that, you know, they were watching the documentary Soul Train, right? And the hippest trip in America. So they're watching it because it comes out in that year, 2010 or something like that. So they're watching it, and then I think it was, Tyrone Proctor, which was on Soul Train, says, all right, like, rest in peace, Greg, right? So Scooby's watching this in his living room with his wife, and Scooby's like, oh, Greg, that's my friend. Like, I love, and then all of a sudden they talk about, you know, all of the people that were on Soul Train, and then they say Scooby-Doo, and so Scooby is watching himself. At that point, his wife doesn't know that he's a dancer and that he was on Soul Train. Like, he hid this whole part of his life to his wife, you know. So he goes, yeah, like, that was me. And so she asked him the story and heard the story. It's more funny. I'm not going to give the details. So she finds out, she Googles him, because he can't use the internet or the computer. She Googles him. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, like, you lied to me all these years. You're a famous dancer. Like, and he's like, no, like, we went to clubs and you couldn't dance. You faked like you couldn't dance, you know. It's a whole story. So once she Googles, she lands on the page of Locker Legends, which was the only page at that time that had a lot of, you know, different history about locking. And a lot of us, you know, would go there just to see what OG Skeet was writing. But you know, it was very from his perspective, you know. So not everything on there you got to take like this is the truth, but it was his perspective of what he saw. So as they went on, you know, sent a message, because there was a little thread that you can send your message, and then people would be like they would post it. So they sent a message privately to OG Skeet, and they said, oh my God. No, I think it even showed on the page. And it said, my name is Scooby-Doo. I was a friend of Greg. I want to send my condolences to whoever. I don't know how to reach anybody from his family. It was something under those lines. I can't, like, I mean, I don't know if it's still there, but that was the whole little message. And so all of a sudden, we wake up to Facebook one morning, and you got OG Skeet, like, typing, Scooby-Doo is alive, you know?
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was crazy. So we're like, what? Scooby-Doo is alive? And so that's how he came back, is that through that, you know, they forged a relationship. And then so OG Skeet was like, kind of like that bridge that helped Scooby get back online and to meet people.
Right.
Like, in that same sentence, Scooby lived in Vegas. And we didn't know, me and Sundance, all these years, he lived in Vegas.
He was under your nose the whole time.
Under our nose the whole time, yeah. So that's how Scooby came back, and it took us a long time to get him, to talk to him. It took us at least 3 months. That's another thing that I'm not going to mention live, but some of you know. And it was very hard for me because I wanted to bring him to HHI, but I had like all these, no, you know, Scooby's with us. And, you know, so even us, we couldn't get his number for 3 months, Scooby's number. So me and Sanders were just like flopping around. And I remember like the next HHI, this is when Scooby walks in the head judge's room. We're like in a meeting with his wife. He walks in the room. I'm like, oh my God, he introduces himself to me, but I'm like, I know you, you don't know me. But I can't, you know, say, oh, I'm Tash, I'm a locker. So I didn't get, that's my first introduction to Scooby in the judges room at HHI. And Sundance had to hide after HHI and follow him into the parking lot. Like, so he followed his Scooby and his wife while they were walking to their car. And so he was hiding, you know, and when he got to him, he's like, my name is Sundance, I'm a locker. And of course, Scooby was like, you're a locker. He looked like a white guy, you know, with a cap, you know. You know, Sundance, he doesn't look like a white guy with a cap, like just like, you know, fireman, tight shirt, you know, get khakis. He doesn't look like a locker. So Scooby said to Sundance, yeah, show me, dance, do some locking. And so that's how he recognized that Sundance was a locker. He's like, oh, you can actually lock. And so for Scooby, his mind was blown because in this moment, he's thinking, this is not possible. People still lock. That was his shock. That people still lock. And he gave up locking because, you know, the sad story of he felt left out of the lockers. And so no, Scooby was never in the lockers, you know. And so him, you know, there's a whole story for him not being around. But when he came back in 2010, he was shocked to see that we were still locking. And so that gave him that drive. So Sundance asked for a first meeting. And they went to dinner. And Sundance, you know, Sundance drilled him with a million questions. And so Scooby started answering. And all of a sudden, for Sundance, the puzzle pieces started like making sense. And so they brought all of the OG6E, well, they called themselves OG6E, but they brought Deputy. A few weeks after, they brought Deputy, Scooby, Big D, all lockers. And we all went into a room. I rented a room in Vegas. And so we did the first, like, filming documentary over a green screen of Scooby. So we all danced together. My daughter was 2. And at that moment, I'm looking at this man, Scooby, and I don't really know him. And I just see him doing a solo. And I remember just looking at him going, and I see how he starts going up. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I know this impulsion. And he goes into this dive, like, bang, like he's close to 60 at this point, maybe 59. I'm running with my baby in my arm, like freaking out, like this old man, to me, it's like an old man, just like did the dive in front of my eyes and just came back up. And I was like, oh, I get the power of Scooby now. That, like Greg was talking, everything he was doing was so powerful that me and Sanders were like, okay, this is definitely divine intervention. Like, I think we're gonna do the elite locking camp with Scooby next, you know, because he's in Vegas. So it was perfect timing.
Yeah, and I think that word is synonymous with Scooby-Doo, is power, right? Somebody asked, I remember, I think it was in China, where somebody asked Scooby, what do you want to see in the battle? And he yelled, power!
Yes. It's all about power for Scooby. And when he dances next to you, you understand why he says that, because the floor literally shakes next to you when he's teaching. It's so powerful.
So let's go a little bit deeper into some of the questions that people are asking and more on like specific topics. And I think a good one to start is power. Let's talk about power in locking. What is power for you? What does power mean, you know, compared between a guy and a girl, even if we want to go that route as well? Let's talk about power in locking.
Well, I think power in the 70s was definitely connected with the music. Why? Because the songs in the 70s, that top 40 that was playing, even if it was top 40, it was all the new funk songs. You imagine it's the first time you hear James Brown in a club. So these dancers, the way they came up in the club with this dance was with full power, because when you look at James Brown, he's a powerful dancer, a powerful performer. You look at Tina Turner, power. All of them had power on stage. This is why we connected to these dancers and these artists. So all of the first original generation, if you know they're looking at Dawn and this, they look at power, because Dawn was powerful. Like nobody, and if you talk to anybody, they'll be like, nobody was as powerful as Don. All of them say it. You know, all of them said when you have to battle Don, you might drive yourself to the next club because you wouldn't win, right? So Scooby, you know, was using that power. He was looking at, you know, what Don was doing, but you know, the big man that he is, to make an impression and to beat Don, you had to have lots of power, lots of energy into his dance. And so, but it was also connected to the music. So for us nowadays, it's very difficult with the music that we have sometimes, or even in the 80s when the music got really, really fast, to keep that power. But in the 80s, we had power and speed, you know. So we would mess up the technique or we would cut short the movement. But we were dancing in a different genre of music. So it was difficult to keep, and we didn't know what was the original feel or the original power. We just like seeing the lockers we could only copy is difficult. So today, power for me, you know, was more like, you know, when you hear that song, makes you snap like a b-boy. You snap. The power comes out. If you don't feel the song, you can try to put as much power as you want. It's not going to work. I mean, you can fake it, but for me, the power is connected to a feeling of, you know, I'm about to snap because this song is giving me that, you know, that feel for explosiveness, you know, like the b-boys. And if we didn't feel the song, we didn't go into the cipher. That was point final. You know, I was like, I don't feel this song. And, you know, you had these people that would push you in the cipher, and we hated that. Don't push me in the cipher. Like, I don't feel this song. Unless you were called out, you know, later on as B-boys and B-girls, you know, then you would go. So that power is like a survival, like, snap in your head. Like, it's also like, it's a gut feeling. And if you do power for power nowadays, this is what happened, is that sometimes the song doesn't call for power, but there's people like Scooby that's like, I want to see power, you know. Do power because he's judging you. That's, if you want to win, do the power. You have to have some kind of, you know, if you want to win, I'm saying, if you want to win and you're dancing in front of Scooby, you're going to have to use power. Greg was powerful. Don was powerful. Everybody from the original generation was powerful. So if you want to keep some of that DNA from the original locking from Don, you need power, and you need a lot of things. You need a lot of things.
And when we talk about power, is this solely power moves? Because I think this is something that maybe we need to clarify a bit. Is there a difference between this or what?
Yeah. It's not just power moves. Of course, power moves were there. Power moves are in b-boying. There's like, but the power is in the power of your point, the power of your lock. You know, like also the timing of it and the stop. There's so many little elements that are fundamental to a powerful movement. And so, like I said to many people, I said, Don, you know, would point at people. He had naturally that power in his body. When we learned from Greg called it accurate point, which was different than Don. Accurate point was like he was going from his shoulder, like it was a whole technique attached to an accurate point, you know. So it
or
was
military style, I would hear Greg say a lot too. Military style.
Military style, yeah. So that he was teaching us to be bigger. Why? Because the reason why Greg was teaching us to these big things and these powerful movements like the man and all of this, which was not what Don created, but it was his way of, you know, teaching us, you know, how to make the movement bigger. Because Greg danced big, you know. He would say, if you have to dance in front of 2,000 people in a stadium, this nobody's going to see. This everybody's gonna see, you know, like he would be like, so he would make, there were tools for teaching. This is how we call it in Las Vegas locking camp. It's like tools to teach, you know, people to have a different, you know, expression in their body. But the problem is that because it was lost in translation, people took it as this is the only way. The ones that were learning from Greg, and that spread out in all the countries where everybody was doing up lock with a muscle man, and then we all started looking like each other. So the power that he was trying to teach turned into its copy paste of a move, and then it lacked the power. Then, the word power lost, was hijacked by power moves and flips and this,
Mm.
And so people thought power meant, having power moves, and it was just, no. When you talk to some people, it's like, no, you just have to have a powerful lock, or a powerful point, like put that stop in it, which is also important. And so when people were all like sloppy, like we were, and when we were learning the dance, like all of us were sloppy. My thing was, no, my technique has to be better, and I was focusing, because I'm a great dancer. I was focusing on, okay, how can I get that power but still be in the right timing and the right beat, to have like that and still stay myself, which was really hard. But power, guys, even as a woman, you can have power, but not to the point where you lose your femininity. But if you want, you can. It's your choice. Like Don is telling you, you do whatever you want, right? But the truth is, he will always pick the girl that can mix the femininity with the power or whatever. He will pick whatever feels like picking.
I always,
that day he likes a whacker mixed with locking, he'll pick her, And then the next day he likes the legs of a guy, and you will pick them. So that's why we were so confused about all of these things, And so when somebody said you have to have more power, the girls automatically thought, oh, I have to dance like a man. I have to be more competitive. I have to jump higher. I have to do all of those things that the guys are doing. And, we're there not competing. So I'm not competing anymore, but I'm seeing the girls having to like really launch at these guys. Like Lockadelic was one of the girls that was really like going after those guys at that time. And I was like, yeah, go girl. Like, yeah, like, because she wasn't trying to like, I liked the powerful girl, I was like for the powerful girl because I was always, a tomboy. But I learned to accept my femininity and put it in my dance. That came way later. That's not how I danced in the beginning. We all have our growth, and in the 80s and the 90s, people were telling us, especially in the early 2000s, they were telling us, go to the floor, jump, flip, go down. Like they would tell us all of these things as teachers, that we need to have those 3 levels and to do tricks and to do. So the information from each teacher was so different that we would lose ourselves in the dance, and we didn't know what was what. We didn't know, okay, what do you mean by power? That person's power did not mean the same thing as that other person's power. So we were lost in the teaching because they didn't have a structure for teaching. There was no unified agreement upon the pioneers on what is first the foundation. So everybody's using that word foundation, which is different from everybody, for everybody, depending on your teacher. And then, you're trying to learn foundation, but you're like, no, that's not foundation. That's just a different flavor, And that's where at one point we were all like, we kind of gravitated towards certain styles, certain feel, not style, certain feel of locking. Like I like, Don's way. I like Shav's way. I like Greg's way. I like, dancers, we like our colors. You don't have to like the other person's color, If you like blue, you like blue, So it was really about a subjective like for what we wanted to accomplish for ourselves, for growth, you know. So if you like power, you were Scooby was your guy, or Greg, because the funk and the power in them was next level, right? And Don too, but it was hard to learn from Don because we didn't understand we couldn't grasp the simplicity, which was what he was teaching. It was so simple, it was so clear, but because it was so simple, we were blind.
So I'm going to actually handle a question now, since we're talking about this. What is Campbellocking and its real essence? Because a lot of people are getting confused with the imitation. And getting right into that right there. That there are people who are...
I'm one. I mean, we've been talking about Campbellocking and locking for a long, long time, but locking and Campbellocking is the same thing. Okay, so let's not forget. I asked Don many times. It's the same thing. The essence, for me, of like we're talking about, subjectivity in words, right? So we know Campbellocking was how it was called first, right? From Don when he was in the Campbellock troupe. But then it became locking. For Don, it's the same thing. The essence of Campbellocking for me, or the Campbellock, is Don. All right, it's what Don was doing. And so that's the DNA, you know. What people are doing and hashtagging it Campbellocking. I mean, when I hashtag Campbellocking, is a tribute to Don. It's like I'm not forgetting my past. That, you know, locking and Campbellocking, hashtag, is me honoring what Don creating and putting his name into it, and not forgetting where the DNA of this is. What people are doing and calling Campbellocking, which is sometimes, if you imitate Don, is pure imitation. It goes against what Don said you need to do. First and foremost, you know, we all imitate our parents. Okay, that's part of life. We all imitate the Michael Jackson because we want to learn how to do, you know, the moonwalk, which we learn eventually. There's a correction. No, it's the backslide, you know. Right. But we imitate to learn. But once you've learned, like Don says, once you know how to do me, be you, you know, because he said that to me like one time, or to many people. Do me, but be you, or, you know, take the dance and make it yours. That's what he says. Like, do those things that I created, you know, and make it yours. If you do everything exactly like him and you imitate him and you're a copy of him and you're not being yourself in it, he might love you, you know, he might choose you in a contest. He might love, you know, even people that look like Greg. He might, depending on his moves or what he likes on that day. It doesn't make you a Campbellocker, you know, or a Campbellocking, you know. It's not a special sect assigned to a few. All right, Campbellocking and locking is the same thing. There's no hashtag I'm a Campbellocker, we're part of this Campbellocking, and you guys are lockers. There's no division for Don. This is why he gets mad when people try to separate the dance. This is why he gets mad at us, and he got mad at us when we're like, yeah, but, you know, there's a wrist roll, and there's a point, and there's an up, and then there's a lock, and then he's like, no, it's all one, you know. And this is why you guys have to be careful, is that nobody has the keys to teach you Campbellocking. Nope. It's not even possible, you know. Campbellocking is who Don was. He was Campbellocking. He's Campbellock. That's a person. That's his DNA. And if you're close to his DNA, not the evolution of your belief of what locking is or what Campbellocking is, you're his DNA from the gene. You kept those things that Don created, and you don't remove them from your dance. There's not many things that, you know, it was that simple that we were blind in 2004. It's only a few things that Don did, but you cannot remove them from the dance. And the moment you remove these things, I don't care what you're doing. It's like you might do a semblance. It could be like you're a great dancer. Sometimes I want to be a dancer and I do less locking because the music is calling me for hip hop or something. So I feel that, you know, I'm not going to go in full power. But I know exactly what it is that you need for Campbellocking or locking. You know, they're both the same. If you want to really know, go on the website, Campbellock.dance, and Don wrote all of those things there. You can read it, do your research, but there is no such thing as, you know, like a separation and that, you know, somebody's going to come in your country and teach you Campbellocking. The only person that can teach Campbellocking is Don. I don't care. And he's over there. All right. So you want to teach locking? That's fine. You want to talk about Campbellocking? That's fine. But there is no truth about, or, you know, it's like, if you've never learned from Don personally, and on top of it, you're teaching Campbellocking because you've learned it from somebody that's like, no. That's why I say to people, go to the source. Right. Go to the source. That's all it is. And Don is not here anymore. So, you know, Dennis has a lot of stories. You know, you have to kind of read them. You have to use your judgment. But on the website, that Don created. We helped Dennis, me and my husband, and a lot of the things were like, okay, Dennis, like let's try to make it more Don's voice. And I was there every step of the way, looking at the comments, looking at the quotes, going like, ooh, this one is, but it's true, you know, like Don did not name, you know, something like the wrist roll. You know, he did not name it wrist roll. He was just doing it. Right. And so this is why Don was trying to make us understand. It's like Campbellocking is a whole. It's not divided, you know. It's one thing. And locking is just, you know, the default name that they had to, you know, use more. But he still named the first thing lock. And now Scooby said the first thing was this, you know, in Singapore, the keeping time. But that is part of the cultural context, you know. Don calls in keeping the beat. He doesn't even agree with keeping time. He says keep the beat, right? So Don, for him, was like, I don't divide my dance. My dance is whole already. When you want to learn the Scooby-Doo or the this or the that, I didn't create that. Go learn it from Scooby-Doo. That's what, and this is what we didn't understand in 2004. So if somebody claims that they're teaching Campbellocking to you, don't believe them, you know, because it's not something that you can teach. It's a state of being, you know. When you're really Campbellocking, you will feel it as you do it. You're like, I feel Don Spirit me. Today, I'm having this.
Right. It's that letting loose and being free in the moment, right? We use the term freedom of expression.
Yes.
You know, even what you're saying about how they're intertwined. I mean, in past conversations we've had about this, it's like we're all part of the same root of a big tree of locking, right? And locking branches off into many directions, and it's okay for this, but it all comes back to Don. And like you said, when we talk about Campbellocking, that is Don. I think what you did with the website was great because you were able to kind of like secure what Don's message was, you know, for future generations. And it's like really good that that website's available. Obviously, everybody, you know, make sure you guys do your research on that site. There's a lot of great content there. Campbellock.dance is the place to be to get what it means to be a Campbellock. What Campbellocking truly means is through Don, for sure.
It's through Don, and when you feel it, you feel it. It's not something you can teach. Like Don refuses when people break down his dance into many bits and parts, you know. But the thing is that for people to understand his dance, like anything in the world, you have to break it into parts to understand the whole.
Right.
And that's what we do as students. We have to break it into parts. And then all of a sudden, 20 years later, when I figured it out, when I was 45 or something, I was like, oh my God, it's that simple. And I threw everything away. I was like, I don't have to do that? Really? Oh my God. And it was so freeing to say, hey, if I sit on a chair and just, you know, do what Don did, I'm still locking. And that was so freeing. And when I was teaching, I was like, guys, you don't have to, girls especially, because girls were feeling intimidated by the guys. I'm like, you don't even have to dance like that. You can dance as yourself and make sure you don't, you know, forget what Don created. And, you know, I called it like, don't forget your black blanket or don't forget your jacket. It was meaning pay homage to Don. Like, you know, there's things that he consistently did, you know. And some people ask me, Tash, what is it that I need to do if I want to dance as good as, you know, Don, or if I want to, and I'm like, go see the video. Why am I going to teach it to you? Just go watch the video, how Don did it, how, you know, Scooby did it, how this person did it. And it was so clear. It's so clear when you watch the video. Study them. What our generation, that's what we did because we didn't have access to them. So when we had a video, like that MTV video that came out in 95, I'm watching MTV, and then all of a sudden they have a segment, and then it's like Soul Train, and then you have the Electric Boogaloo and the Lockers. You know, little tiny segment on MTV while I'm watching the awards. And I remember going, oh my God, here it is. And I recorded it and I watched it, and it was like the one on, you know, Disco Connection.
Yeah.
And I watched it in loop, and to understand how Fluky danced, how Don danced, how Greg danced. And at that time I hadn't learned from them yet. But I remember just, you know, watching this video over and over again, because Soul Train, all the Soul Train footage was owned by people in China. So it wasn't on. We had no access to it.
China or Japan? I think it
Oh,
was
Japan. Right, Japan. Sorry. Yeah, correction. Good correction. So we didn't have access to anything except for what, the little like glimpse of things that we would see on TV through MTV Awards, Grammy Awards, some, little videos. It was very, very difficult. So yeah, but guys, Campbellocking, it's not something you can teach. So it's an essence that you feel in the moment, and if you have it, that moment, some days I have it, some days I don't, when I do judge solos or not. Some days I'm like, yes, like I give myself 5, I'm like, yes. But some nights I'm like, oh, that was forced,
Right.
And so, yeah,
And
don't separate the two.
it's a good description of this, and I think that handles that question very well. Okay. Here's going to change things up a bit. I mean, we talked a bit early on about, you doing some more commercial work and stuff, but the question here is, how do you achieve a balance between the industry and some of the community work that you've done over time? Because again, you shared a bit of HHI, which is more on the commercial side, and then balancing that with the Vegas camp, and even for people within their own communities, people who are maybe connected with hip-hop groups or trying to build their community, how can people get along? And you also mentioned Steve Bolton, who was here in Montreal, was part of the commercial hip-hop scene and things like this, or Spicy, who's done a lot of work with hip-hop dance but still stay connected through Bust a Move. So let's talk about balance between the commercial and the locking community.
Well, for me, the balance as a dancer, the goal always, for when we are young, the dream is to go on stage, right? The goal is, of course, we have all of these things. We love ciphering, we love the clubs, but what we're seeing on TV is the stage, the theater, the performance, the Grammys, the music videos. Our aim is to be recognized and known. So for me, this is why I had to, keep doing what I love, keep training, that was my challenge as a dancer, is like I wanted to be always better than the boys, but that was very hard as a B-girl. And that was my competitive nature, even though I'm not that competitive, but I had this, like, I want to be better than myself. And so, but at the same time, working as, dancing with the live bands in Montreal, being connected with the music industry, and being the only woman at that time where there was other people like Shauna, but I was like the one really like the more commercial, like doing, because I could do pirouettes and I could do jazz and I could do all of these others and I could choreograph. So I went into the mainstream too. I did both. Yes.
We got 30 seconds left. I'm going to stop the Instagram, have everybody rejoin in, and then we can continue this. Okay? Guys, jump back in, starting now.
That's good.
Welcome back. Right on, guys. We're back. So Tash is explaining finding balance between the commercial and the community.
Yeah. So I can go?
Yep.
Okay. And so I had my one foot in the mainstream and one foot in the community, because the community feeds the mainstream. The reason why Michael Jackson was doing all those things is because he had a foot also in the community. He was learning from people that were creating these dances in the community. So the community is important to the mainstream because that's where the ideas are planted in the community. They kind of bloom on stage, but not in their real versions, right? So for me, it was important to have that balance, because I realized really early on that if I wasn't that bridge, when the commercial dancers or the hip hop dancers would, or singers or rappers or musicians, like they would bring their things on live in videos, music videos, or on stage, they would either go always to the B-boys, but then it was a free-for-all on stage, as backup or opening acts, or they would go to dancers to choreograph a little piece behind, you know. So for me, I choreograph with these aspects of the dance, like the locking inside my choreographies were always full of locking, you know. But people in those days would be like, oh, the girl that danced with her arms a lot. They didn't know it was locking, but I would put it in, I would insert it in everything that I did. No matter where I went, I would insert locking. And eventually that kept me, you know, that gave me a name in Montreal in the sense that, you know, my choreography was different. I was doing a lot of music videos in those days. Like I was, and I couldn't even be part of some of these music videos because like the difference between me doing it at my level and the dancers that I was teaching it was like so wide that I couldn't be in a video because it's like the difference of quality. My quality was higher, and I'm teaching these choreographies with these concepts to these new dancers that I have to learn in a few days to present it, you know. So unless I was like with people that were regularly in sessions with me that could dance with me, like Patana, you know, who was like my sidekick in those days, that the only person that really wanted to lock aside from Flow Rock, like it was very hard for me to bridge the two. But as we started going more into theater, you know, like that's how I was able to keep the balance, because with Usine Say, you know, they were inviting all of these groups from Europe performing on stage, like Cafig, you know, and they were like locking, popping, breaking. And I remember like we'd go to the show and then I'd be invited because I was that bridge already and say, hey, like Tash is the girl in Montreal, like she's the connection between a lot of like the dancers that we would like to bring to these theater shows to get people to pay to come and watch them. So I was always the bridge no matter what. I would make those calls for everybody. And so for me to keep that balance was important because I always had this I was a connector. I could see something and see something else and go, oh, wow. Let's say I remember that time where Tweety and Ja Rule came to Montreal, and I was like, but my crew, we have this whole set, and Ricky J was opening, and I was like, I brought Flo Rock into the show. I brought my daughter, she was doing a Harlem Shake, and I'd be like, it's perfect. And then all of a sudden we're dancing in front of like 25,000-30,000 people, you know. And so for me it was like, I'm that person that was giving connections to so many people. I would bring those guys, Flo Rock, a lot of people to teach in studios because I was a dance teacher also. So for me, I would insert myself in all these places. So by that time that, let's say things like HHI bubbled up and people wanted a Canadian judge, they were like always going, oh, but Tash is the one that knows a lot, you know, or you should go get Tash as a head judge. So that was my first exposure to HHI from Montreal with Studio A going, Tash is like, you know, the one that knows all these street dance, the locking, the popping, the this, that. Because don't forget, at that point, I'm a connector also as a mama in the b-boy world, because they have their own, you know, rivalry. And I'm a connector. I'm like with Boom Beast, and like they're like Area 51, the little kids, and then the older generation, like Tactical Crew, even my crew, Flow Rock, they're against all the kids. You can't dance. They're clowning them, right? And so me, I was always like, guys, be nice. Like, no, he's amazing. Boom Beast is amazing. This person. So I was always that person that would be like that bridge between the two. And also because I'm a mother, so I wanted people to get along. So I was a mediator. So for me, that balance was super important, because if everybody like was with me, I could bring everybody together, even if they don't like each other. I could be in a room and have both, you know, and tell them, this is the vision I have. This is what I want to do, you know. And you either do it or you don't do it, but I'm choreographing this video. Do you want to be in it? You know, I'm doing this. Do you want to be in it? And so eventually, as Flow Rock, we did so many contracts, like jazz festivals, Just for Laughs festival. Like, there's so many things we did in Montreal that put us on the map. But eventually, for me, my vision was like, no, like, I'm going to get organized. I'm going to get a computer while you guys are on the old port. I'm going to get a computer. I'm going to make the CVs. I'm going to translate all of our CVs in French. I'm going to send it also to France, and we had our first store in France. But if I didn't do those things that were more of the professional work, the work that the dancers don't want to do, the work that sets you up as you're a professional or you're still an amateur. And when you're a professional, you sit at a desk and you start building your grants. We didn't have grants, so we had to like do other things. So that was the learning curve for me, going, you know what? I'm gonna really, really like invest myself fully professionally. I quit my job. I went full time into teaching dance, and the goal was, no, this is my career. I'm gonna treat it and focus my attention on it like it's a career. And that opened all the doors. I didn't audition for Cirque. Like, I did audition, but I didn't like went to a regular audition. They called me at home, because it was always that when you're on purpose with your life and you keep the balance, and you realize that dance is just like life, you have to like have a balance of everything. Because if you're too much in this one aspect of battling, it's cool. It's a good thing, but you're missing out on the rest. And so people don't know you on the other side of the spectrum. So if you're polarized as a dancer, and I never wanted to be polarized, even Flow Rock, my crew was getting mad at me. You're not at the session. I'm like, yeah, I got to put bread on my table. I got to do this video. I got to go to Toronto. I got to, I had to do other things as a parent. I had to pay my bills. So I wasn't polarized by design. I had no choice. As a mother, I had to do commercial stuff to pay the bills, right? And so sometimes, people would hate on that. Oh, look at her. She's spinning on her head. She has 3 kids. Or, people would be like, I remember that time where I was dancing for DJ Jazzy Jeff, and I'm in a little gold bikini with like fluorescent paint on my body, and then all the b-boys walk in the room, and I'm dancing on a go-go dancing. And this is the meal for my kids, right? But everybody's like, haha, Tash is like on a podium, go-go dancing in a little like outfit, I had to do what I had to do, and that kept me somehow grounded. Even though it was crazy, it kept me grounded because I couldn't focus on just one thing at a time. So that's what I say to dancer. If you want to keep the balance, you can't just be there online doing online battles. You guys are doing too many online battles. It's cool. Do them. You got to read books. You got to get educated. Learn a new skills, that's going to serve you, like Scramble. Like he's doing so many things. I bet you guys don't know that he's doing brand new bag, But you don't pay attention. You have to pay attention to what's going on around you, not in your little bubble of the world. And not only like, oh, well, this guy's doing this before me, I want to do it before. No. See, have a vision, have foresight. Look 20 years ahead, if you can. You don't have to have a perfect picture. But, you want to be healthy enough that, by the time you reach wherever you reach, that the people that were looking at you are not saying, oh, he's an angry OG, or is like completely bipolar, or this or that. Like, we hear the stories, and my main thing was, I'm looking at the OGs and the teachers and the even like in the mainstream world, the unhealthy people. I've seen a lot of unhealthy things in the touring world, and I was always there going like, I don't want to be that person in 20 years. How can I not be that person? The bad examples were my examples to not become that. Like I say to many, many students, balance is achieved when you don't divide life from dance, but you don't focus only on dance. You find a time for everything, and you don't force yourself to dance. When you don't feel like it, you don't dance, You can watch videos. There's like, some people feel like, okay, I need to train. No, there's a time to pause. There's a time to rest. There's a time to go. There's a time to sleep. Some of you, if you want to be healthy and have longevity, have balance in your life, and then you'll have balance in your dance.
Yep, diversification is super important. I agree, and being able to branch out into different aspects, I think, will help you, like you said, on the professional side as well as on the artistic side as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Maybe let's try to see if we can make this a short question. What has been the most shocking thing when traveling around the world teaching that you have seen?
What's the most shocking thing? How people don't know what locking, the fundamentals of locking are. That, I'm not talking about, okay, there's things that are, when talk about life, the poverty, how some communities, that's been very difficult. When you go to India, you go to Brazil, you go to these, communities where it's hard for them, not just those places, many places, right? And coming back home and go, oh my God, I'm so privileged, right? So privileged as a dancer or as an artist to be able to do this for a living. But also, as I'm traveling, the most shocking thing for me was when I was, when we talk about locking or dancing, was JD. Is walking into all these countries and going, oh my God, a lot of people are not taking workshops anymore. They're not they don't want to learn about locking. They just want to do the battle. Or not just locking, because all of the classes sometimes could have been way more full, and unless you were like Scooby, or if you're a pioneer, your class probably will be full. But for some of us, it was just like people, what was shocking is that a lot of people, and it's normal, they think that locking is taught the way that person dance. So they're like, oh, I don't really like her style, or I don't really like his style, so I'm not going to take the class. That's the first thing that happens, right? And I get it, because, I was like that too when I was young. But the problem is that also realizing that as I'm going through all of these cities or all these places and around the world, that a lot of people don't even know what are the fundamentals of locking, what Don created. They don't know how to make that. They don't know. They have no answers, but yet they don't take the classes, and then they get mad when they don't get picked in the battles. And then they want feedback, but they're not hearing you because you're telling them something so simple. It's so simple, and all they had to do was maybe take the class. And I'm not saying my class. I'm just saying take the Pioneers class, not because of what they can teach you as moves, it's the stories they tell. Listen to the stories, and then it's going to be like all of these light bulbs coming up. Like when we met Scooby for the first time, and I sat down, I learned so much. I learned so much from Don. I learned so much from Greg, the stories. And so I say people are missing out on this information based on a subjectivity. I don't like this dancer. I don't like the way she locks, or I don't like the way he pops, or I don't like, I heard that, or the one I hear all the time. Well, I want to be myself. I want to be my own dancer. I want to be free, And I'm like, that kills me when I hear that, because I'm like, yes, you should be free, like Don says, but there are things that you should learn, because if you're going to be judging all these other lockers and you don't know why you have to kick, or as a teacher, not you have to kick the left leg, I'm anal about the left leg with Scooby, I'm like, you can kick the right leg, but if you're a teacher and you're kicking that right leg instead of the left leg, and you're telling your kids, this is how the Scooby-Doo is done, and I'm like, I was corrected by Flowmaster many years ago, and I corrected it, and I understand that he learned it from Greg, and Greg, used to teach us a lot of things, but there was no emphasis. But when I met Scooby and I learned the story about why I had to kick the left, why he kicked the left leg, the story was like, I was like, oh my God, now I get it.
What was the story? What was the story?
The story is when he was choreographing for a modern dancer, a showpiece in LA, the modern dancer said, make a little combo. And at that time, Scooby injured his right leg. So he created all the combos on the left leg. And that's the only reason. But then you think, okay, so he did that, and so that stayed with him, because when you create something into a combo choreography, like, you adopt that way. And then he kept doing these combos the same way he did the combos for that piece, right? But then you have people like, that added to what Scooby did. It's still on the same leg. If you do a Skeeter Rabbit, it's still the left leg. So I remember going to LA the first time and seeing all these line, these these stop and go lines, and all of a sudden I couldn't get in line because I was using my right leg. The whole time I couldn't figure out what was that combo that they were doing, because they were doing up, lock, Scooby Doo, Skeeter Rabbit, Scooby Doo. Like, they kept going like this, but I was in Montreal, and at that time I was teaching the right leg, because that's the default leg for teachers, right? We start with right, we go to left. So until the moment I was corrected by Flo, I remember being like, oh my God, I can't dance anymore. And then hearing the story from Scooby-Doo, that's when it really came like, wow. Now I understand, why everything he does. And I say to people, how can I dance? Like, teach me how to do the Scooby-Doo. And I'm like, go look at Scooby-Doo online. So I'm not going to teach you. Go look at Scooby-Doo online. How does he do it? Go learn the class for him. Why would I teach you the Scooby-Doo where there's a whole bunch of video on him or on Don or on anybody, that you can literally watch to learn what's fundamental about what Don did and what's the foundation that Scooby created with the fundamentals. Because foundation is something that's not its own entity. It's something you build. It's, so people sometimes mix foundation and say, oh, I have my own foundation. And I'm like, how do you build a wall without cement, and water? How do you build it? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, having that student mentality, that student approach to learning, I think is super important. At the same time, like you said, telling students to go reference the source, but still being able to direct them on what's important. That's super.
You have to, and as yourself, you have to train the student. The reason, and like I'm going to tell you, the stories are changing with time, guys. So I heard new stories this year about how things were built that people thought Scooby created and then Greg created, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, Demita created that? Oh, and my whole mind goes, okay, let's relearn, let's go talk again, or sometimes the stuff that Tony Basil did that nobody knows that Tony Basil did. There's so many stories from so many of these pioneers that you got to get one by one, and then you make your puzzle picture, But there's a whole bunch of little puzzle pieces. You got to understand that these pioneers did not take each other's class. They danced together. They were like friends at first. Then they had their falling out. But they all have pieces of the story. And when they get together, it's the reason why we did the Las Vegas campus. And when they got together and started on these stories, it was like a little spark that would spark the other person's memory, the other pioneer's memory, and all of a sudden it was like a whole cipher of memory. They're going down the rabbit hole, and all of the kids are like,
right.
Oh my God! Of course, we heard Don's story 50 million times, but we're still sitting there listening to Don's story because maybe he'll remember something different.
Exactly.
And sometimes they do.
I got to give a shout out to Rebecca Tsao, I believe. She is premiering a video on Monday on Facebook where she does a big Zoom interview with Scooby and Demita and other OGs. So if you guys are on Facebook on Monday, she will be premiering this video, and I think it'll be a good opportunity to watch and to hear some of these stories in that roundtable type discussion. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think it's something that you guys should all tune into. I'm going to wind this down because we're coming on to 2.5 hours, and I think that you've gone through a lot of really good things. And I think just to kind of bring things back full circle, I'm going to end with this particular question, is how can we bring an emphasis back into ciphers or circles and partying in the current culture of dance contests and competitions? We hear this a lot at the time, but let's hear your thoughts on this, and I think after that we'll be able to wind this conversation down.
Well, for me, guys, I know you love the battle scene. I love it too, because it gives us a way to express ourselves through competition, but there is no competition without collaboration. And so if you can't collaborate in creating a safe space for dancers to express themselves, like a party, like I went through a lot of battles where there's battles, people sign in, they warm up, they do the battle, then they go home. They don't party. They don't dance. The DJ is surprised that I'm dancing. He's like, "Do you like my music?" I'm like, "I love your music." "Oh, because you're dancing." I was like, "What?" Like, I'm confused because I'm like, "No, this is how it's supposed to be." And this was one really great thing about Bust the Move in Montreal is that, our format, this is why everybody would come, is that it, like Spicy, the way she, because I'm helping Spicy. She was the organizer. And it was like parties and parties and parties and pre-parties and then Bust the Move and then after parties and after parties and it was just DJ rooms and this and that and movies and it was the whole culture. And to have this gift is to not be polarized in only the battle. You want to cipher during the battle. You want to have great DJs, but you don't want to cipher and do locking the whole day. Like the DJs are playing all kinds of music. You have to explore the same way we explored in a club. If the DJ is playing like a break beat, we're top rocking. If we're like, the DJ is playing a house music, we're house dancing. We're not locking throughout the whole night doing the same, or any style, picking one style and sticking to it the whole night. Whereas sometimes I'm like, this is how we fed each other. This is how we learn. When you look at locking and you look at house, look at how many steps are similar. When you look at party dancing and you look at house, look at how many steps are similar. It all comes from the same seed. Like some of these steps are, culturally already born, already roots and branches of the soul dances from the past. Those soul dance became more party dance. These party dance are becoming, more house dancing. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, but now it's light feet. Hip hop now it's all about light feet. And when I'm doing light feet, I'm like, oh my God, there's this like really weird wrist roll that we do as lockers, and there's really interesting footwork that looks like the Scooby-Doo, or the Skeeter. It's crazy. It's all connected. To do that, to evolve, we need to evolve from the real DNA of the seed. You can have great concepts and great battle concepts and great this, but if you don't have the party and the atmosphere and a setting where people can feel free to go in a cipher or not go in a cipher, because it's something that when you enter the cipher, like I say, the cipher is empty. It's calling for somebody. Not everybody's ready to be in that cipher. Not everybody's ready. And you have to let people have their own time. You can't force them. But when we were in a club, we didn't feel forced. We would just go because that's my song. And we're actually like trying to, get in before the other person goes in, because that's your one chance to go in. Because nobody was letting you dance. Everybody wanted to be the dancer, all right? But there was not just one cipher, guys. It wasn't like we were walking in the club, we drop our bags, and then we go straight to the cipher. There's a whole ritual that leads to the cipher. You walk in the club, you check out who's there, you're like rocking your head, then you go to the bar, you get a drink, you sit down. It's a ritual. You're not ready yet. We didn't go. We didn't. It was like you get the first drink in, or your Coke because you were not rich enough, or your water. Then
that's okay.
They might not like you in the club. Yeah, they wouldn't let you in sometimes because you don't, buy drinks. So, but it was a whole ritual of going to the club, going to see live music, going to see bands, paying for show tickets, where we're learning artists. Like that was also a big thing in Montreal. We had the jazz festival and all these festivals that would bring these huge artists, and so we were lucky and blessed that way to be so close to the source. So without the culture, you can't grow locking or grow the seed into like a healthy tree, because your tree is polarized and it's like going with that branch and it's only following that branch, and it's like, no, it's everything that you need. You need everything. And you need to reunite not just the lockers. Like in Montreal with Unlock the Funk and Scramble, like organized this with Lori and Jeff. It's like...
And Trek.
And Jeff and Trek and all the Lock Unity. It's so many of you guys. But you think there's only lockers that are coming to the event? No. It's like everybody was there. The crumpers, the b-boys, the poppers, the mommies, the grandmas, everybody is there to support, because this is like how Montreal, we are a party city. We're a party culture. We're cultural, multicultural already, you know. And I think the mix of culture is why Montreal was so great. And this is why some of us coming from Montreal have like these deep roots into the dance. And it's just like Scramble is a b-boy, I'm a b-girl. We never limited ourselves. If there's like Frank Boogie that's coming from Toronto teach a popping class, we're all in a class as lockers. If it was like Shannon coming from New York teaching, you know, even like Brian Green, we're all in a class learning a house. We never separated anything. So, you know, remember that the cipher needs to be healthy, you know, and the cipher needs a lot of different types of energy, you know, and a DJ is number one. The DJ tells you what you need to dance. The DJ is telling you, you know, it's okay. You can lock on house or on whatever. That's a choice. It's personal. You can do whatever you want. But, you know, if you want to grow as a dancer, you better listen to how the DJ is leading that story, because he's doing a crazy storytelling. And if you leave before the end of the night, like I saw many places when I go to these clubs and everybody's gone at one because they ciphered so much they can't dance anymore, I'm looking at them going, yeah, I'm almost 50 years old and I'm still in the club at 3 a.m. I'm waiting until the lights come on, because back in the day, that's what we did. We waited until the lights come on, because at that end, that DJ is going to climax his set. And when he dropped these last songs, the party is like here. People are freaking out. People are actually begging the DJ to play more songs. And clapping, and you know, and this is an experience that you guys are missing out on. You have to create this culture again and have DJs and live musicians, and so it's a lot of things.
To all the event organizers watching, this is a message I think from both of us. For your next events, I think it's mandatory that you need to have a pre-party or an after-party involved in some way, shape, or form, because every dancer needs to go to those after parties or pre-parties, because
every dancer, if you lose, I don't care if you lose, ground your sensitivity.
Check your ego at the door.
Check your ego at the door. Stay in the club and party. Like, this is one thing that drives me nuts. I'm like, oh, you're leaving because you lost this battle? Oh my gosh. You will not go far in life if this is what happens. Right. Because your life is not, you know, life will ask you to do things that you don't want to do many times. And if you like a little battle, you leave. And this is why I'm here sometimes. I'm here to knock some sense into the... Go back to the drawing board, go back, and in a nice way. It's like, no, go back. Like, this is not the end. You have to keep working, keep growing. I'm growing, you know. So guys, parties, create. And if you're gonna complain about not being invited as a judge or this or that, I tell girls, because girls are like, yeah, but we're not invited as women. And it's true, guys don't invite us sometimes. But I'm like, why don't you create your own thing? You know, don't wait for other people to do the things for you. You know, create it. And don't get mad at us for creating things, like the way some people got mad at us for creating, you know, What's Soul. People get mad at us for creating Locking for Life. People get mad at us for creating whatever things that we create because we sense a need. It might be in our way polarized to what we love, because we love that. But it's our way to inject into the community. It's like, you know, it could be Flow Rock, it could be your crew, it could be your reunite, you know, with so many other people to make a whole, you know, instead of thinking me, my crew, my this is worthy. No, find the common thread, and then work together to be the best. Collaborating, which is very hard for some people because the ego is so present. Right. It's like, but when you collaborate, you make things on a really much larger scale than you could do it alone. So collaboration, the diversity, connection, use like all the countries together, we can do so many things. But when we're like single focus, and single focus is good when you train yourself, when you want to be better than yourself, when you have a goal for yourself. But as a community, as the dancers, we need to be united in more than so many ways. But diversity within this unity is good because it gives you many colors, many flavors. All right, and you can choose. I like this. I don't like this. You don't have to have your house painted the same color as the other dancer, but you gotta respect their choices.
That's it.
Respect is number one. Respect the pioneers, even though, okay, some of them sometimes, yeah, they don't deserve some respect because of what their action leads to, but you got to understand that it comes from a deep pain and deep hurt, right? And so give chances, a second chance, like, you know, and then if they ask for forgiveness, whatever, you know, like, try again, try again, try again. And what it is that the main problem for dancers is, you know, understanding that, hey, even though you don't like that person, it doesn't mean that you can disrespect them. Or even though you don't like the way that person dance, doesn't mean you can disrespect them. You know, even if the quality is not your type of quality, you can't disrespect them. You know, especially not online, or especially not, you know, like in events. So for me, it's like it's a whole. You have to be healthy as dancers if you want to have longevity, because if you want people to follow you, you know, and they have to choose between you and the next best thing, that's already a problem, you know. So I think I really want to thank you, you know, Scramble, for like uniting us, you know, and doing all of these things that you do, because I know it's not easy.
No.
What you're doing.
But you guys all have good, important things to share, and it's like you said, if we can all work together as a unit, even though we do our own, we have our own avenues of doing it, there's so much that we can attain. And I think honestly, just as one example is the time that we all came together through Bust a Move, right? And we were able to do a video together, even something simple like that kind of set off the next couple years, and that growth and unity amongst all of lockers, with Locking for Life, with Watt's Soul, with Richie and all this stuff. And it's like, this is important, and this is how our scene will get better in the future, you know. And
also it's a venue to heal, because, you know, like the little drama that we had, me and Richie back in the day, and then the little dramas that some of us have, and then we were face to face, and you're like talking, oh, but I was feeling this way, oh, but I wasn't doing that, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, because when you're young, you're in your feelings, you're in your ego, you know, you want to battle, you want to be the best. So as you grow older, you know, like me, I always say to people, like, meet me again here in 20 years, you'll, you know, and it's because you become wiser and you see, you know, that's just the striving and the ego is normal, you know. So we let you kids sometimes go through your crazy, you know, debates, and we watch you and we're like, oh gosh, you know, and we look at the pioneers and we're like, oh gosh. And the key is learn from that, learn from those mistakes, learn from, you know, your ego, like not being in the right place sometimes, you know. And I think we all learn, even me, so much, and to balance it all so that we can share something healthy, so that we don't we pay homage to Dawn, and we don't lose that DNA. It's such an important dance, you know, an art form, like I was saying, you know, it's beautiful. So if we lose it over beef of who does what, when, how well, how bad, we're losing the whole picture that Don created for us.
Exactly. Yeah, you nailed it. I don't think there's much else to say after that. I think we're going to wind this down, guys. It's been 2.5 hours. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. There were some technical difficulties at the beginning, but we managed to secure everything. Everything stabilized, thankfully. And Tash, you went in. You went in and said a lot of stuff. You know, we're still unsure of how things are going right now, you know, with social distancing. So we can't really see too far in the future.
Yeah.
But, you know...
that's difficult. When I went to Toronto, and they said, Tash, you can't do the handshake. I was like, what? Imagine, it's so part of the culture to do a locking handshake.
Right. And I actually, Trek had asked at some point, how do we see the scene evolving with social distancing in the following years? It's a interesting question, and I don't know if we have the answer to that. Like, I think. Well, maybe you explain a bit, and I'll give my insights at the end.
I think it's very difficult because, we don't have the puzzle pieces, all the puzzle pieces. We're creating a lot of online content, which is a good thing because things are going to be preserved and we're going to archive some things, but hopefully this won't last long, because if this keeps going on and social distancing is like China right now also, because we're not really as careful as China, but they literally have, magnetized bracelets. They can't leave their house when they're like in the house. It's crazy. And I saw it yesterday and I was just like, imagine if we can never like come together in a room and party. How is that going to affect the arts? The arts, everything we do in Montreal or everywhere in the world, when we go on that stage, when we create pieces, the arts, like the artists are going to be affected by this social distancing. So we're going to have to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of soul searching. And first and foremost, the first thing is you're gonna have to be healthy, to beat this thing. You're gonna have to think about what you eat and how to raise your immune system, or like you spike it up so that you can beat a lot of what's going on right now, like some of the virus. Nobody has the full truth, but to be healthy is first and foremost, and when you have a healthy body, you have a healthy mind, you can start having a lot more vision about how to combat the chaos and really use that chaos to create something new.
Exactly.
And I think that some of you are so you a lot of genius in the locking community, a lot of engineers, a lot of doctors, a lot of I'm always surprised about the dancers, like how many skills they have on the side. So some of you got to think in new ways. You got to start creating. And so while you're all battling online, I'm thinking about what's going to happen when I'm leaving. So Trek, that's a great question. It's like, because why are you going to do more of what you were already doing instead of creating a new path for yourself? Or me, I was always that dancer. I was like, okay, I'm looking over there. I want to be over there. From the moment I was in Montreal, my dream was to go to America, to be, to have that American dream, whatever. But I made it happen because it's with that mind that you can create something positive. So I'm waging you guys, giving you a wager, think out of the box right now. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Who's going to come up with that crazy idea that's going to set the stage or the tone for the future of our art form, whatever is street dance.
I mean, right? The power is in our hands and what we want to do with it. And I said this at the very beginning, and I think the whole reason of wanting to do these AMAs is to just maybe get people to think a bit differently, because it is a bit of a paradigm shift, or it's a chance to create a shift in the paradigm of what it is to be in street dance. So, it's a good opportunity for you guys to think about this and to think about the values and the core principles that guide you and what's important, and reassess. And I think that's a good thing.
And we get to meet each other on this platform, which normally nobody would have been talking like this.
Exactly.
So there is beauty. There's a beauty in all of this and that chaos. So we always notice the opportunity to learn through the chaos. That was my main thing. When I saw chaos, I saw an opportunity to be better, to react better, to be better than the last time. Not just in battles, I'm talking about life and my choices, So this is very important for you guys. So there's an opportunity in this chaos right now. Like he says, it's a paradigm shift. Absolutely, I agree with you.
Okay, Tash, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day tomorrow, right? Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And all the mothers, happy Mother's Day.
And if people need to get in touch with you or want to get in touch with you, you're on Instagram, you have Facebook, you're always open for this, yes?
I get a lot of messages, so it takes me time sometimes to answer all of you. I'm sorry if I don't repost everything you send me. It's a lot. And especially, after Dawn passing, it was very hard for me to get back to dancing. I think I had my first dancing in that battle that I did not long ago, and I literally broke down in tears because I was just like, the overwhelming sense of loss, was very hard for a few of us actually. And so while everybody was dancing like, everywhere on the internet. Like, we were like bombarded with questions, and it was hard for us to keep that distance and grieve. And so yeah, to me, it's like if we can take a moment of silence for Don, that would be really great. For thanking him for what he did for us.
Thank you,
And
Tash.
thank you, guys.
Rest in
Thank
peace,
you,
Don
Mom.
Campbell. Thank you, Tash.
Scramble.
Guys, we'll do this again soon. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Once again, I'm Scramblelock. You can check the past AMAs I have on YouTube and Facebook. So if you guys want to still share and get that knowledge, take it in. That's it, guys. We'll see you again soon.